Welcome to Matt on Foil.
And welcome to episode 2 with me and the foil drive. Here in episode 1 I used the long 7/6 board with the foil drive, my first ever session, and as soon as I was able to get on foil and had a little bit of stability, I thought, well, that long board, that's not made for pumping, so let's downsize it. And I had a little smaller Wingfoil board, 74 liters, and of course one of my Pumpfoil board, almost 12 liters, that I wanted to try. So from the big one, let's go to the Wingfoil board and then focus on the Pumpfoil board as well. I even put on my foil drive shirt that I got. I hope that would help. Maybe it did. Let's see. So a new board is always a challenge because you need to find that center of the board. When you just lie on the board, you tend to be a little bit more in the back, but when you accelerate, the foil shoots out of the water and you have to move forward. And when you get slower again, you have to move backwards. If you don't do that, the nose will go under the water. And it's, of course, with the shorter board, once the nose hits the water, it doesn't just shoot up, so it can go really steep into the water as well. So finding that center was quite difficult. But once you have a little bit of speed, you feel how the foil engages and you can try to stand up. While standing, it's really not that different from the longboard. But then obviously, as soon as you exit the water, the pitch axis is a lot easier to pump. But once your nose is down, you fall instead of just float. If you don't accelerate, but go to the front already, then as you can see, the nose points down and you fall off the board. So you really have to control that pitch axis. That's super important. Once the foil is engaged and you fly, then the board is a lot more reactive than the long one, obviously. So it's really, for pumping, it's a lot better. It's the same with the longboard, but it's more important that you have your speed. When standing up on that shorter board, see how much pressure I put on the front foot when the board lifts up. Then once you have the speed, you can stay straighter. And then I immediately tried to ollie up and started pumping. And that was actually not that bad. Was my first few pumps with that board, and you feel when the pod hits the water, right? You feel really well. But also, if you have a little bit of control and you do that for a couple of times, when you come back down, you can just continue with the foil drive and not fall down immediately. Managing the height on the mast is quite difficult. As you can see here, I went a little too high and I fell down. So how long does it take to actually get on foil? You have a little timer on the bottom of your screen here, and I wasn't super in a hurry. I just tried to go and stand up as I usually did with a lot of control, not too fast. And you see here, first taxiing, then accelerating a little more, and then trying to ollie up and start pumping. Here, it took me almost 25 seconds. Of course, you can do it faster as well, but for me, as a start, that was pretty all right. Here, a few pumps. You see in the back when the pod hits the water, you feel it and you can see it and hear it as well. So all senses. Also, pretty nice. Once you know how high you are, how it sounds, how it feels, you can pre-engage the motor and keep on taxiing once you're too low and just get back up. So you don't fall like dock starting and have to go back to the dock and hopefully manage your start, but you can just accelerate again with the motor and give it a few more pumps. Now, I didn't have too much time because, yes, my son said he would come and film, but of course he wanted to get on the water as well. So sometimes I had to hand him the gear and he just cruised around, went on foil, sometimes a little bit, but he enjoyed it more with the longer board because here, as soon as the nose hits, he get water in his face. So he enjoyed the longboard a little more. Here you have some different angles, how I did it. Of course, there are different options. Too much to the front, so the nose sinks. You really have to manage that pitch axis. First, I went on my knees, and then I stood up slowly, sometimes with the back leg, sometimes with the front leg, keeping that pressure on the hands, and then ollie up. Come on, man, ollie up. All right, not good enough, so accelerate again with the motor, and having that feeling once you accelerate to really go forward, That's not easy, and if the angle is too high, you stall and fall like with any other foil. So really not that easy, not as simple as I thought, but yeah, it was my second session, so it was pretty okay. What I think is super important is that you don't care if the motor makes farting noises. If the propellers are half outside the water, then it really sounds weird, but just don't get scared. Keep pressing that trigger, it will re-accelerate, and don't stop because then you will fall for sure. Now here you have one try that was actually not that bad, and you might have seen it in the first video. I'm usually a goofy pumper, but I surf and snowboard on regular. So here's my regular stance. It was the first time I was actually to pump that many times on my switch stance. So that's really not the way I usually pump, but I was able to pump quite a while, which is new because if I pump switch, so not my good stand, on my pump foil, I fall after 2 or 3 pumps. And here was the first time that I was actually going further. So maybe this is really a good exercise to pump on your wrong side. And I really started to appreciate how the foil drive actually helps learning how to pump. So I would have fallen just before with the dock start, would have gone back to the dock, had to start again, maybe would have fallen again and again. And here I was just able to accelerate again and just go for another try, or even stay on foil and go again. So here, ollie up, pumping as long as possible. If you feel like you start to fall down, you can re-accelerate. But here on my wrong side, again, was able to make a couple of pumps, just re-accelerating with the motor, ollieing back up. Come on, ollie back up. Come on. There we go. And keep on pumping. So I really understood that this foil drive can really help you improve your pumping. Of course, if you drive or foil in seaweed, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing foil drive can do. Oops. But now let's downsize the board. Let's take it from a 74-liter board to a not even 12-liter Pumpfoil board, 94 centimeters. Really, that's one of my favorite boards to pump foil. But before we get on the water, first, thank you very much, Mark Böhler. He bought me 2 coffees on buymeacoffee.com. Link is in the description. I'm super happy for every coffee I get. So thank you very much for your support. Speaking of support, a lot of you watching are not subscribed. So if you like this content, and it shows up anyway on your feed, it's really not far away. Click that subscription button. So that helps out a lot as well. And I'm super glad every time I get one more subscriber. All right, let's get on the water now. So first, I was quite nervous because the whole setup with mast, foil, and foil drive is supposed to be about 9 kilograms with 12-liter or almost 12-liter of buoyancy of the board. I was just curious, will it swim? Will it float? Yes, it did. So as soon as it did, I started to hop on and motor away from shore. Now, what happened there was what usually happens when someone starts foiling. When you don't have the speed, you move left and right. You're really not super nice and gliding, and I was too far back also with like average beginner foilers. They're too far back, so you slap down on the water. Then I thought, all right, I'd move a little more to the front, and I did. As you can see here, I accelerated, but then again, as soon as you accelerate a bit more, you're too far back. So you really have to move towards the front. And that happened even more. And I know how to pump foil, I would say, but still I was too far in the back. So here I tried to move as much forward as possible on the board. So like the front of the board is at my chest height, but it was enough. So even more towards the front, but not at the beginning, because if you do it before you accelerate, then the board will go down. So you have to be a little bit on the back. And then as soon as you have a little bit of speed, you can move yourself forward. And while it accelerates, move more towards the front. But then if you start like, oh, I'm lifting again, don't stop pulling the trigger, because if you stop pulling the trigger, then you'll fall down. So it's really difficult And as soon as you stop pulling the trigger because you feel like something's not good, you're done. You can start again. Like here, I stopped pulling the trigger and fell down. I'm not showing you all my fails, that's too long. But what I've learned, still on my belly though, what I've learned was that first I have to angle the board up and then pull the trigger. And as soon as it accelerates a little bit, pull myself up against the motor and then put the board flat to get on foil, still on my belly. So I cruise around on my belly trying to find that balance, and I was surprised. Look at this, these guys just chilling here, and as I pass by. So this maybe 45 minutes that I had, first time on my knees here, were actually quite helpful because I got better on getting out of the water on foil. Of course, I crashed a lot of times, and all the times when you fall, the water splashes beside your head here. Super fun. But yeah, I got a little bit better over time, trying to balance. As soon as I felt comfortable on my belly, I tried to get on my knees, and here I got out of the water on foil and pumped on my knees only. The next challenge was mast height management, and yeah, I tried to get out, but you can see here, getting up, kind of like ollieing, but there I breached, and as soon as there's air under your front wing, yes, you fall. That happened quite often. Again, not going to show you everything. So controlling how high you are, super important. And yes, you'll fall probably a lot, but that's just what it is. So many variables. But then it was the end of my session, not because the battery was empty. I would have had a second full one, but because the motor just didn't stop anymore. Something broke in the remote and it just kept accelerating. And it was quite scary, let me tell you that. I turned the board around and it was just like going full throttle. So something broke in the remote and eventually I turned it off and swam back. So what happened? Apparently that was a first gen remote and they had some troubles with the spring, so you just couldn't release anymore. It was always full on. So that was the end of the session, but the guys from Foil Drive were super helpful. I called Andrea or left him a voice memo and he immediately wrote back. And there was another guy who lives in Torbole. He has Foil Drive in his surf school, and I was able to pick up a remote on the same day. So the next day I was already back on the water. With this guy, the other guy, Matteo, I tried a downwinder. So in the next episode, episode 3 of my Foil Drive quest, you're gonna see how I eventually got on foil on my Pumpfoil and what the downwind session was like with Matteo. There, just a heads up, I didn't use my Pumpfoil board, I used the Wingfoil board. So if you want to check that out, subscribe, stay tuned for the next episode, which is gonna come out as soon as possible. All right, see you guys in the next one. Cheers.